All right, hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Dean Clark Group podcast, your weekly Gold Coast. And today I have an amazing guest who was one of my coaches and still is one of my coaches, life coach Vivace Maxvictor, also known as the life coach to the stars. She is a coach to one of the newest members of $1 Million Listing New York, Tyler Whitman. She's been featured in multiple publications, Fox News, and soon to be CNN. And medicine. And her claims to fame is that she has done over now probably close to 5,000 coaching calls with all different walks of life, but all high-performing individuals, mainly in the real estate industry. So, V, thank you for coming on.
Dean Clark, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, jumping right into the first question that I do have for you. So, why, given the pandemic, why is it important to have a strong mindset?
Oh my God. So we can hit the ground running. As soon as they lift the gates, we are ready to go. Right now, we're planting mental and emotional seeds. The harvest is going to be a result of everything that we think and feel during this COVID timeout, which is actually a wonderful time for us to plant new seeds for what we want to manifest in the upcoming weeks and months.
Got it. So basically what I'm hearing is, yes, planting the seeds is the most important thing because we're looking to get new business down the road and we want to just be more productive. So what a better time to do it now. So, but the real question that I keep on thinking about myself, which is how do you balance productivity and self-care?
Well, the first thing is to schedule both. We want to make sure that throughout the day, and especially you, because you have 2 kids, you have a beautiful wife, you have a wonderful business. Are you scheduling time for productivity and for self-care? So as you said, I work with a lot of high performers, and typically my high performers schedule in their productivity time, but they don't schedule in their self-care time. So I think it is so important coming straight out of the gate to make sure that both are scheduled so that we can not only achieve, but we can also be fulfilled and make sure that we're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually well taken care of.
I mean, yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, what I'm hearing is time management, right? You're just basically, you're scheduling certain things in your day and prioritizing certain things that... Time management with a twist. The twist is you're managing your time to make sure you're taking care of your own internal needs too. I know a lot of high performers like you are so customer and client service oriented that a lot of times, and especially like you go home after work to your kids, you may not have the time allotted for you to do things for your own self-care outside of just going to the gym. Learning personally self-care during COVID, because I had so many clients back to back, that COVID has taught me that a better way to take care of myself is to actually space people out. So I wasn't getting an A+ in self-care myself because similar to many of my clients, I was very performance-based. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. So then what are the mistakes that you see your clients making right now, if any?
Well, my clients are actually pretty much high performers, right? So they're wired and they're engineered to make the highest and best use of their time. So they're looking at this timeout as an opportunity to identify their critical vulnerabilities and to work on those, and then to identify how they want to expand and enrich their life, whether it's their personal life or their professional life. So for a lot of people that I'm working with, there are aspects of either their own personal life and or their professional life that they are called to reinvent or they want to reinvent. And it's so important to take advantage of this timeout to look at what parts of our business are we excelling in and what parts of our business do we need to modify in order to make sure that we not only excel, but win in the upcoming days and months. Because business might be a little bit different than it usually is. So I think people who might be making a mistake during this time are people who may want to sit back and wait till it's over and then figure it out. And this is a time for us to really be very, very clear and specific about who do we want to become on the other side of this so that we have a clear template that we're working towards every single day.
Got it. No, that makes perfect sense. And what I'm hearing, the constant theme throughout this is doing the work now so you can reap the rewards later at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah, you have to. I mean, prepare. You can't be over-prepared. There was one of the Olympics where Michael Phelps didn't win the gold medal, and when he jumped out of the pool, he had lost by 1/100th of a second. They asked him, Michael Phelps, why didn't you get the gold medal? And he said, whoever the competitor was, he said he was more well-prepared than me. So it is so important, especially there's so much job loss and so many businesses are different. We need to be prepared. And for anyone who's lost their job,
the competition is so strong now because there, you know, with supply and demand, there's so many people who might be competing for the same job. And if you're more prepared than everyone else around you, it is far more likely that you can get a job that you want.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So are you seeing a lot of agents that you're not coaching? Like, are they seeing like an exit of people from like the non-producers or the people that are like not really doing like any business, or are they just kind of like still there? Is it just going to jump right back into it? What are you hearing on the street from your Douglas Elliman, Compass, and Triple Mint, you know, clientele out there?
Well, thanks for the shout out to those companies, and for the rest of the companies that I work with. Again, I typically work with the high producers, and these are people who are very, very active. These people are on social media. They're doing webinars all day. They're doing customer service and customer contact. They're in touch with their people. I have people who are saying, thank God for this time out, because they can actually now focus on areas of the business that they've been neglecting. And again, people are leaders for a reason. They're leaders because they think very differently, and they hold themselves up to a higher standard. So the standard for everybody is for them to progress during this time, for them to expand, for them to enrich themselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and then also to have a very clear strategy and game plan for what they want to do differently going forward. And in fact, they're inspiring me. All these people are so proactive, and a lot of them also are proactive with their families. They're spending more family quality time with their kids. Or I had one of my clients who said he watched his niece through FaceTime, his nephew through FaceTime take the first steps. So this is a time for all of us to connect with the things that are most important for us, to set ourselves up for the win that's hopefully about to happen for all of us. And I think we have to prepare to win, and we have to work at winning. And if we don't identify our critical vulnerabilities, when the gates are lifted, we're going to fall really back far behind.
Totally. I completely agree with everything you just said. And so really, I think given what we just discussed together, I really believe that, I mean, unless I'm missing something, I feel like I pretty much got the essence of the message. I feel like every question that I've asked, you pretty much answered it with a very underlying tone, which is just get your ass in gear, get more prepared, stop neglecting, you know, go back into the things that you were trying to do beforehand that you weren't able to do. And also basically prioritize self-care now that you can do that. So I guess what I really wanted to share with the audience and is just what are you like, what would you recommend right now? Like in terms of just like for the average person, maybe if someone that isn't in, I know you're high level and everything, but to the average person who maybe is just looking to kind of get out of their own way in a way and maybe step up in their game in general, what is that first step? I know you talk about the neuroplasticity in your brain. Like, what are some first steps that someone can take right now that they can really take a value from this?
So I actually would love that question. I think the first step is to activate your desire. It is so important to start with activating the desire for wanting more. So if someone doesn't have a particular result in their life, it's first to really connect with what is the results that you want to have. And as you mentioned, you know, I have a medical background. One question that allowed me to create this magical world of coaching, which I never could have imagined would be this fulfilling and lucrative and nurturing. But the question that actually started me pivoting and starting this brand new world was a Brian Tracy question. And I know you're a Brian Tracy fan. And so Brian Tracy said, if you could do anything in the world and you were guaranteed success and you could not fail, what would you do? And so I would encourage anyone who's unclear to start with that question. Because then you're connecting to your deepest truth rather than making a decision out of desperation or making a decision out of just habit. So that question got me to think, and obviously the answer put me in a completely different pathway and a different trajectory, which was beautiful because it was my deepest truth. So I think number one, activate your desire for wanting more. Number two, answer that question, what would you do? Number three, what is the next logical step? You don't have to take the biggest step, but it's the next logical step. And I'm a big fan of momentum. So sometimes start to take little steps, make a phone call, send an email, do an inquiry, time yourself for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, uninterrupted time, taking the next step. I think it's important to build momentum. And I tell all my clients, you know, I'm a big believer in we have to get into state first. So a lot of people don't get in the zone first. They just want to go from like 0 to hero in a second without getting into the zone.
If you need music, if there's like for me, I get into the zone by using music. So if I'm in an uninspired state, I'm not going to sit there till I feel inspired. I use music to like my up. So I think people need to figure out what inspires you and give yourself a chance. For anyone who is struggling, give yourself a chance to sit with yourself and visualize. If you could have anything, what would you have? And through that visualization, different parts of your nervous system are going to wake up. And it might be easier for you to take action instead of sitting in inertia and waiting for something to hit you over the head and inspire you. So little small actions, I think, are undervalued and so important.
Oh man, that was, I mean, that was the best I've heard someone say that in a nutshell, activating your desire, but doing what if you were guaranteed success. I don't think enough people ask that question of themselves because they just assume that there's a risk to everything. They don't understand that if you put in all that momentum and that time and the energy, I mean, you can make it happen. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so. And Dean, the greatest risk is to not do whatever we came here to do, whatever our mission in life is. I mean, I came from a strong medical background. I didn't like it. I just kept doing it because it's what I knew how to do. So I was habituated to doing something that didn't really bring me joy. It just brought me money. And I think this time out can be such a powerful time for reflection, for people to say, hey, whatever I was doing before, was it really fulfilling my mind, my body, my spirit? And if it wasn't, this is such an incredible opportunity to just choose again.
Yeah.
Just choose again and really tap into it. I mean, when I wrote that down in my notebook that I wanted to lead seminars, I remember, Dean, at the time thinking, well, I only know medical data and I hate medical content, so I would never want to lead a seminar on this stuff that is very uninspiring to me and I'm very unenthused about. But what was interesting, once I wrote it down, then your subconscious mind activates your conscious mind, and then you'll see the answers all around you. And so very short period of time, I realized it was personal development, which is not something I had done. And also, to Brian Tracy's credit, I didn't think it was possible for it to become a career. I thought, okay, maybe I could do this coaching thing on the side. But I think it is so important that, Deepak Chopra says, if you have been given the desire for something, you've also been given the ability. So I suddenly realized I had all this desire for personal development, but I didn't know if I had the ability, and I didn't know the know-how, and I didn't know how I could get clients or who would come and who would stay, and I didn't know the logistics of it. But I think the most important thing is to connect first with what we want and then own that truth and don't give up because the first 5 things didn't work out.
Oh, that's amazing. Kudos. That is amazing. So I just want to thank you for doing this because I know a lot of people are going to take a lot of value from this. Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience in terms of what you want to, anything else you want to say, give, just like, anything else at all?
Yeah, I mean, this is a time for a pregnant pause, so we want to see, what do we want to give birth to on the other side of this? For a lot of people, if you're feeling down and out, one thing that you could do that could be fun is to mentally rehearse your 5 past victories in life, in any area of life. And again, the goal is to activate that part of your nervous system that believes that you've had success, that you can create success, that you can have what you want. And I think we need to exercise personal responsibility for exposing ourselves to information that is going to empower us. So I know so many people are listening to the news all day and they're getting disenthralled and disenchanted and feeling disempowered and feeling disheartened. Well, if the news isn't supporting you to become the highest and best version of yourself, maybe listen to something else. So I think being personally responsible to look at all the incoming data and the impact, and then if something is powering us down and not powering us up, for us to choose to do something differently. I saw there was a doctor on TV and he said something interesting that actually checked me. He said, one of the worst things you can do, and this is early on in the quarantine, this is weeks ago, he said, one of the worst things you could do before you go to bed is to check the death count. And this is literally what I would do in bed. I would check it. And it's really obviously clearly not helpful to put that information in our mind right before we doze off. I think it's important to also review the successes of the day and then to set an intention for what you want to create tomorrow, for what you want to manifest tomorrow, set an intention for who you want to become, set an intention for what part of yourself you want to expand. Set an intention for how you want to challenge yourself. Like, how are you willing to challenge yourself? Set an intention for how you want to love yourself during this quarantine, how you want to love yourself on the other side of it. And also, we're learning life is so fragile. I think for all the viewers, and you know, I spent 12 years in a career that I didn't love because I didn't take this time out and I didn't believe I could do it. But I think if we can take the highest and best use of this time out. So a year from now, we could say, you know what, while what happened was terrible, who we all became as a community of people, we all became so empowered and so strong and so authentic to our truth and our mission in life that we have a better world on the other side of this. So I encourage everyone to power up so that we have a better community of people, just not even in where we live. Like I'm in New York City, you're in New Jersey, but in the whole world, if each and every one of us took the time to connect with our truth and then throw our excuses out. You know, I tell my clients, if you are healthy, you're not helpless. So anyone who's feeling helpless, cut it out. And again, Dean, you said, what could people do? I think one superhero power that people sometimes don't take advantage of is people can ask for help. So there's so many people who are willing to help you. If you ask the first 5 people and they're unavailable and you love yourself enough, take a stand for yourself and find people who are ready, willing, and able to help you with what you need help with. But the rule is you have to be willing to help yourself first.
Absolutely. Do you recommend meditating?
Personally, I don't meditate in the way meditation I assume is meant to be done. I think so I listen to trance music. Trance music is my meditation. But I do think, yes, having a spiritual practice, it is so important to ground and so important to like have a time out to connect and have gratitude. This is, I mean, I think I'm so much more connected all day long. I mean, throughout the day to gratitude than I was before COVID.
Gratitude.
Because just the gratitude of being healthy, the gratitude of being here, the gratitude of being able to create whatever we want to create in the future. And then I can say this as an Iranian Jew, for me, the gratitude of being in America and being an American citizen. There's so many privileges that we have that, yes, certain things suck a lot right now, but there's so many things that are magical and beautiful, especially if we live in these United States. And having lived in a war-torn country and having lived in a country where bombs were going off, and not just for 8 weeks. That was a lifestyle there. There's so many countries, like I know in Iran back in the day, Dean, and this is why I have so much gratitude. They would give us food coupons during the war, and we would have to go take our food coupon, stand in a long line, get to the end of the line, submit our coupon to get whatever the coupon, entitled us to. You could get to the end of the line and they'd be out of food. So I think right now, like I live here on the Upper East Side of New York City, the stores are full. There's so much food. There are all these first responders. There's so many people who are showing up for us, the truck drivers. There's so many people batting for us. And thank God we're not in, a war-torn region when there are bombs going off and there's so much more devastation. And so I think for every single person, I would encourage everyone to sit down and write down 50 things, 50 things of all the things that you're grateful for, and things you're grateful for about yourself, things you're grateful for with your family, things you're grateful for with your community, with the country, like anything that you can feel gratitude towards to open up your heart chakra. You talked about meditation. Meditation is to align our chakras. Open up your chakras so all this energy can come bubbling up. And then you might shock yourself with your creativity, and you might amaze yourself with how much more powerful you are than you might think you are if you're just checked out.
That's amazing. I mean, that right there, the fact that you went from, meditation to gratitude, right? Like at the end of the day, what is that? Like, what you're trying to do, you're trying to pay respect to yourself and pay respect to the world and the environment. And the fact is, what's funny? I don't know if I ever told you, but the owner of my company is actually also Persian Iranian. Like she is from that descent. And she tells me stories about how the war-torn area, and honestly, I don't know what it is, but you and her are very similar in that way. And you're very much like that, like, I love that, like, that that you bring to the just energy in general. So that's amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, that energy comes from scarcity. That energy comes from living in a place where there was so much lack and there was so much. I mean, we left Iran during the through the Department of Health because my mother was very sick. She's fine now, but they had given her 2 months to live. In the Department of Health, during the hospitals, there were all these wounded people who were wounded by bombs in the hallway. So when you come from an environment like that, I mean, I'm not going to cry about being quarantined in a safe apartment. So I think anyone who's crying about being quarantined, like we're healthy, we're able-bodied for all of us who have the blessing of being healthy and being able-bodied. We live in this incredible country that people are dying every day trying to cross the border to come here. Literally, what are we going to complain about? So I find it is so important, and I do something at night. Your viewers may want to do it. You may want to do it. It's really helpful. Before I go to bed, I will sit in my bed and I count 10 things that I'm really grateful for the day. And I will not go to bed till I found my 10 things. And so I think it's wonderful to go to sleep in gratitude and to just, you know, right now, even in the quarantine, right, we're recognizing all the things, or many of us might be recognizing all the things we took for granted. So today I was walking down the street and I recognized how much I miss seeing people's faces. Like I took for granted that I could see a stranger's face. And so, or sit next to a stranger in the subway. Like you can't sit next to people. You shouldn't touch this. There's so much we took for granted. I think our gratitude inventory right now should explode instead of sitting there and feeling helpless and powerless and sad and, oh, we can't go out for 2 months. Dude, you got the rest of your life to live in a much more fulfilling fashion, in a much more sacred way. So I think this is a call for us to be sacred, to like touch the sacredness of all the gifts that we're given, all the things that we took for granted, including just, I don't know, anything, going to a restaurant, going to the post office, doing basic things that now we're like, oh my God, I wish I could just go sit, you know, at Starbucks next to a stranger and have a cup of coffee. So, or go to work and sit next to that coworker that you may not love. So I think it's important. When you mentioned about your boss, Dean, when things are taken away from you and you get them back, you learn to really, really, really honor them. And so I also, you know, I have an autoimmune issue. So for me, just being healthy is such a celebration. So I think there's so much that we have an opportunity to celebrate so much. Yeah. And that we can celebrate who we're about to become. That is so beautiful and magical. So anyone who's listening to you obviously is into personal development. I think you are an exemplary standard for what people could do during this COVID timeout, which I call it COVID power up, which I call it the time for COVID revelation. You're having revelations during this timeout. I'm having revelations. We can all have a revelation, and that could be our COVID gift.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, V, for doing this again. And I want to thank everyone for listening. This has been amazing. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Dean Clark Group podcast.
Thank you, Dean, for having me.
No problem.